Hello and welcome to our podcast series from the Leadership Collective, where we explore the trends shaping leadership, talent, and global expansion. I'm your host, James Crouch. I'm the General Manager here at the Leadership Collective. I work closely with high growth organizations to build global teams, capability centers, and leadership pipelines across markets. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Tommy. He's the head of global recruiting at Juniper Square, a fast paced fintech where he leads global hiring across the US, India, and Europe. He brings over 10 years of experience in talent acquisition, come on all the way from agency routes to scaling high performing teams through rapid growth phases. And he's here fresh from the Higher Altitude Summit, where today he's joining us to explore how AI is reshaping recruiting and what that means for TA leaders everywhere. Welcome, Tommy.
Thank you, James. I'm excited to be here and to talk about this very relevant topics today with AI and talent and where the space is going over the next decade.
AI is so rapidly evolving, rapidly changing. We're so different to what things were a couple of years ago, where people didn't even know what a GPT was, let alone what AI could really do for them. What's your opinion in that, especially when it comes to recruiting and hiring and looking at how TA leaders like yourselves are looking to evolve that function?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think right now is a time of rapid change, and I think the conversation is really getting started. I am a strong believer that we don't know where we're going. We don't know what this will look like. That was a hot topic at the Altitude Summit in SF a couple weeks ago. But right now is the time to learn, get uncomfortable, lean in, explore, and start just experimenting and seeing how can we leverage AI to be a partner that will help us be more effective? How can it help us drive change for the positive, both in our personal lives, but also in talent and how we hire and find top talent? So I think right now it's just having conversations like this, informing ourselves, starting to think creatively, get a little bit uncomfortable, lean in, and start kind of trying some things out and seeing what works positively. And with how fast things are changing right now, it's okay to go experiment and be like, nah, this isn't working. Let's pivot. Right now, every business, every company, the way that we all function and think about AI is about constantly pivoting. So it's okay to try something out, realize it's not working, and make a quick change.
I couldn't agree more. I think one of the key things that always gets me with AI at the moment is obviously, and I appreciate that there's a constant fear of, that it's going to take our jobs or anything else, but I think we're so drastically far away from that people are starting to learn now how instead it can actually complement our jobs. It can take away a lot of the processes and functions that are causing us major issues or headaches and make them as smooth and clear for us as possible, especially when it comes to TA. I mean, from that side, and when you were at the summit itself, were there any key points that people were grappling with, or is there something in particular that you think is at the forefront of that thought process at the moment?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I think one thing to go back to your comment around the fear of AI taking our jobs, I think that's a fair fear to have.
Of
And
course.
when we started talking about AI at Juniper Square, our CEO and co-founder right away said, it's not about it taking everyone's jobs, but what will for sure happen is it will be those who lean into AI are going to continue to evolve and have a job. Those who do not lean in are going to be left behind. So it's more around those with AI and those without AI. And those without AI are going to really face a big reality change very quickly if they haven't already. And so what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to drive with my team, Juniper Square, and my network is let's really lean into this so we're all on that side of we have AI to assist us because then we're going to be able to move things forward. And this did play into the Altitude Summit too. We had quite a few speakers, so there's 100 TA leaders from around the world, all of which are very focused on AI right now. And the one thing that was very clear is no one knows where this is going, as I've already mentioned, but everyone is trying to get ahead of it and they're starting to experiment and try things out and seeing how it can actually help humanize the process in a lot of ways. And we can maybe get into that later in this conversation, but in a lot of ways, recruiting has left that kind of human-centric approach in the last, let's call it 5+ years. And so AI could actually help us get back to that. But how we hire today, how we structure our teams, what our roles look like today, that's all going to evolve quicker. And I think we're all underestimating by how much.
I couldn't agree more. It's rapidly changing. We partner a lot with HRCI, and I'm consistently
Mhm.
talking to their members, and it's at the forefront of anybody in HR across the board, let alone TA and that side as well. Like TA, the amount of things that it can do to help. A
Mm.
couple of the things that you said there that I'd love to kind of dig into a bit more. I suppose as a key point, you said start leaning into those core things and do that. And I love that mentality of try it. If it doesn't work, well then we move on and we try something else.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what is it that you're leaning into at the moment? What are the key processes that you feel that AI can be part of, or kind of what is going to give you the biggest impact or change that you're noticing from that?
Yeah, I think it's a very complicated technology, right? And so I think for a lot of those, depending on where they are with their journey of AI, call it a 1 to 5 scale. One is, I don't know what this is. This is very scary. Five is like, I'm an AI engineer and an industry thought leader in AI. For a lot of us, we're somewhere in that middle. And I think for a lot of TA people specifically, if their company's not leaning into AI a lot, or they're not an AI centric company yet, they don't know where to start, but they're hearing, I have to get started somewhere. So my advice to them, and I certainly did this myself, work with your existing vendors today. If you're working with technology to help you, your tech stack in recruiting, it's very likely they are one step ahead already of like where AI is going, and their product roadmap likely is already going to include it. If it doesn't, you may want to explore looking at other vendors. But thankfully for us, all of our vendors were already thinking about it. So I started with our existing third-party partners like Ashby, who's our all-in-one ATS. And I was like, what features do you have today? How can I get trained on this? How can my team get trained on this? Everything from helping assist with app review to sourcing to how do you write out your messages. They had all of that already done, and now they're continuing to add to that. And then start working on understanding those, start probing, understand why they are prioritizing that. Where is the feature today? Where do they see it going a year from now, 2 years from now? That starts to open up the right conversation that will help give you that foundation that you need. And then you can start to look at your current process, break it down from talent attraction all the way to closing and retaining talent. Okay, with your existing tech stack and the features they have today and the roadmap that they're rolling out in the next 1 to 2 years, where do you think you're covered and where do you think some of your gaps are? And then talk to your team. What do they love doing? What do they hate doing? It's human nature. We all have parts of our job that we really love and wish we had more time. And there's always going to be parts that we're like, oh, this is the part of the day I just want to quickly get by. And so it's really important that you talk to your team too, and then think about how can we leverage AI, be it Gemini, ChatGPT, your current existing tech stack, to help be that assistant that can take some of that routine stuff off of their plate that they don't want to do. My team, and I'm a big advocate of this, is like, think of it as we all have a personal assistant now that has a PhD level of intelligence. How cool is that? And how can you leverage that to be more productive and more happy in your role and to drive more results?
Interesting. Yeah, we're doing very similar things here in different stages, trying to look at those kind of complicated processes, or exactly that, those parts of the day that perhaps you don't look as forward to get automations in place and ways for AI to assist in kind of balancing out that workload. I suppose it's crazy how it can actually do the complete opposite and move that you have you can get a lot more done in your day than what you would have by manually doing all of those processes.
Yep, I agree.
And then I suppose the other question that I'll have, and this is the flip side now, and it's a bit of a cheeky one, but obviously it's clear that you guys are a bit further in the process. But the thing that you said that always is, and has stuck with me from the start, is learning from the mistakes and what hasn't worked. So
Mm.
have you found anything that didn't work for you? What was it that you tried, or kind of didn't succeed, or perhaps the process didn't perhaps integrate best for you?
That's a really good question. I don't think we've had any big missteps, although we will, and that's okay, and that's about learning. I would say ours is more around expectation setting. I think at first it's like, all right, our vendors are coming out with all of these new AI things. So that means it's going to drastically cut down our application review time, or our sourcing is going to go up. So for us, it's been more around that learning of, hey, we're taking a meaningful step forward, but we're not there today, but we know where we somewhat want to go, right? So an example of this is where I think in TA, where it's going to drive a ton of change quickly, is around scheduling and sourcing. I already, and I don't think I'm the first to do this, but I'm certainly probably more on the front end of this. I've already gotten rid of the RC and the sourcer role. And the big thing I want to say is that what works for me and what we talk about today isn't going to work for every team, every organization. That's why it's important to have a network of leaders that you can collaborate with through communities like the Leadership Collective, or ASPE has a great network of leaders too. But for me, I knew early on it's probably time to cut that and lean on AI. And then it's starting to like understand, okay, what can that feature do today? We're not going to go from no manual coordination to fully automated AI, right? But can it cut that down significantly by 20, 30, 40%? And then what is that roadmap again with our vendor to get to the point that hopefully in the next year to 2 years that is fully automated? So for me, I think right away I got so excited and I leaned in and I started having these conversations, and I thought this is going to drastically change this immediately for my team. And it's not going to feel as immediate, but it gets people starting to get comfortable. It starts to be a meaningful step forward. And then you kind of know where you're going, even though we have no idea what this is all going to look like a few years. You start to kind of understand what the journey is going to look like.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm going to pick your brains at some point after this, because we're introducing, and it sounds like you're ahead of me on that one. But we've started bringing in. I've started automating a lot of our scheduling and automations and anything on that side, so that it's all live. We work in an international environment, the same as yourselves, so time zones and everything else can't align every time. So we have a lot of scheduling systems that are plugged directly into our ATS now, so that candidates can arrange directly, get all the information that they need. And we're also looking at base level chatbots at this time, just to be able to give them some of the information that would be of major interest to them, to automate that process. I think it's kind of embracing it and leaning into how you can work with it on that side, and kind of, as you said, keeping yourself relevant whilst also moving with the pack on that. From my side, so then the next question that is always, and something that I struggle with actually, in regards to utilization of AI, how do you keep it human? I think that's one of the key things in recruitment that's difficult, because I think that especially over the last few years, there are a lot of recruitment processes that have taken the human away, and that leaves a sour taste in a candidate's mouth, and also it drives an everlasting reputation of that business.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of businesses are now pushing more and more to keep that human element. We very much, ourselves look to make sure that we speak to candidates, keep them up to date, the most basic of things, but sometimes that's not happening. How are you working with AI to keep it human without having it do all of those automations and remove all of the personalization that you have in that human interaction?
Yeah, I might go a little high level on this soon, so if you need me to bring it back down, let me know. But I think it's more around how is the structure of recruiting look like, and what is the day-to-day role going to be a year from now and into the future. What I think AI is going to allow us to do is automate a lot of that manual stuff so that the recruiters actually have more time to spend with the candidates. So what my vision of this is I really want my team to be deeply embedded into our business with their main client groups. I've gotten away with like tech versus non-tech, all of that. But I want the teams that they primarily work with and they have ownership of, for them to be deeply embedded into that business, to really understand it to the point that talent candidates forget that they're a recruiter and that they're just talking to someone on the team. So when you have this embedded model, they're out in I think of it as like field sales, if you will. So I want my team out in the industry, meeting with talent. So we are really big into the private market. So private equity, venture capital, commercial real estate. I want my team at events, speaking with people, finding talent that way. I want them at offsites for the teams that they support, in the team meetings, in the team monthly all hands, so they can really speak to all of that. So that's one way where you think about humanizing it. It's like if they can free up that time and they're so deeply embedded, they then have more time to get to know these candidates, potentially meet them at an event, and they know the business even more. So they're going to be more engaged, more excited because they understand the outcomes that they're helping to drive for the business. They're getting back to kind of the roots of recruiting, which is like actually meeting with the candidates and understanding. So all the time that you spend maybe doing app review or sourcing, which will still be required, but there'll be less time that you need to do that. It can be more time getting to know you as the candidate. What's important to you? What are your motivations? Let me help you understand what this role looks like and make sure that that aligns with what you need right now at this stage of your life or your career. So that's kind of bigger picture. Obviously, you have to like filter that down and that will keep evolving. But that's one way that I'm thinking about it that I believe strongly will humanize it more and get us back to the roots of why a lot of us wanted to get into recruiting and allow us to improve our quality of hire and more quickly derive results for the company.
I love that model. Yeah, embedding them in and kind of almost treating it, in all intents, I think you said like a sales model, or I mean, the reality is that recruitment is sales in a lot of different ways. We're
Mhm.
selling the role, we're selling the long term goals, and finding the right person that wants to buy that product in all intents and purposes. So it's a really interesting way to do it, and then kind of getting people back on the ground and kind of feeling part of it rather than. Yeah, I think that especially with recent events over the last few years and COVID and everything else, everyone got a little bit alienated, I think. So uh, I love that model. Yeah, okay.
One thing I will add to that too is I got asked a while back, what do you think of these AI agents where candidates do their first interview with the AI agent and then they meet with the recruiter? And I'll be really honest, at first I was taken aback and I was like, that's not humanizing. I hate that. But this is why getting uncomfortable and having the conversations and exploring is really important because through learning more, speaking with some vendors who have that, some who are developing it that already work with us, speaking to other leaders, I got challenged on that in a really good way. And so, for example, one leader came up to me and he's like, if we do that, that means every single person who applies to Juniper Square gets an interview. And if everyone gets an interview, they have an opportunity to really represent themselves. It could help and should help eliminate bias. So maybe if you're doing app review and they didn't go to what you would consider a prestigious school, or maybe you didn't see enough of their like Python coding experience, or maybe they didn't have enough data on um, their sales goals and their like percent to quota each quarter. You can make these assumptions, but if you give everyone the opportunity to speak for themselves and to really represent themselves, are you actually going to see candidates who maybe would have been passed through get more of a fair shot? And does that even out the playing field a little bit? And I thought about that, and I actually am a big believer in that. We aren't using it yet. However, I think we will sooner rather than later. And I am a big believer now that it could actually really create more equitable hiring and help eliminate bias. Now, humans have bias, AI has bias. You got to be really educated and mindful about that. That's not going away. But I think there's actually a lot of great benefits to that. And I'm really excited to see who could get into the process, who maybe before maybe could have been skipped. And then you take that a step further. If the initial 15-minute screen, I don't think it should be a big, long AI agent screen for an hour, is about why Juniper Square. Walk me through your background, walk me through an outcome that you drove in the last year that you're really proud of. By the time they meet with the recruiter, you're not having to repeat all of that. So now the recruiter and the candidate have more time to get to know each other, talk about the opportunity, set right expectations, and then that humanizes it a little bit more too. Because sometimes recruiters, and my team has these days where you're in back to back for 5 hours straight of recruiter screen. And your best recruiter who cares more than anyone by that final one is not going to be showing up as strong as they probably did on the first couple, right? It can become a little repetitive, a little bit transactional when you're just trying to get through a day like that. This could really help to solve for some of that in some ways, in my opinion.
Interesting. Well, I'll be honest. So my first thought process was very similar to what you said at the start, and you've kind of made me do a 180 without even having the conversation there. Because when you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. I think that, and I think there's a whole further conversation in that I won't dig into now. But I think that if it's done right, I can definitely see what you're saying there. I think that it's about the balance. I think that setting something like that up in that way could actually deliver something, yeah, pivotal to it. And it's obviously about kind of working on that candidate mentality to make sure that they don't feel that the humanity is gone, and working with those that perhaps don't make it through the process to make it clear to them that this is of a benefit, and to expand the process. But yeah.
Yeah, and it starts all before that. You have to be very open and honest. And this is something I'm working on right now. So if anyone jumps to our website or applies to a job, you're not going to see this yet, but you will soon. You have to be open and transparent about how you view AI in the recruiting process. So something I thought was really cool was the last couple of weeks when Coinbase came out with their blog post about how they use AI in recruiting. And they came out and said, if you don't like AI and you don't like that it's going to be part of our interview process, Coinbase isn't for you. But they said it in a very soft, respectful way. And it's like, this is who we are. You need to find a company that aligns with what you are comfortable with, what you believe in. If you don't believe in this isn't the place for you. I thought that was really cool. So if you are going to introduce a ton of AI to a point that a candidate's going to realize, like an agent, you need to be forthcoming in your interview process of how AI is going to be used to set those right expectations. And those who are scared of it or they don't like it, maybe that's a signal that this isn't the right place for them right now. Secondly to that is, with all of the AI coming out, you have to be more mindful of like how you're utilizing it. I think, for example, in sequencing when sourcing, a lot of tools now have it where it can write that for you. And AI is still at the point where it needs to be trained. That goes back to my expectation comment a little bit ago. It takes a lot more upfront work than you might realize, but you have to train it, and you still have to verify, and you still have to make sure that it's evolving, that it has the right tone. I think a lot of people think, okay, we're going to introduce this. We're going to be forthcoming that we use it, but then they're not verifying the quality of that AI and making sure that the model is being trained in the way that they want it to represent their brand. So it's very important that you are forthcoming with it, that you still verify it, and that you realize it takes time to get to the ultimate kind of quality that is important.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it comes down to the organization a lot as well. And that, and when you put it in that way, yeah, I agree with Coinbase's comment in a way. Obviously, it's again how you deliver it. But I mean, very similar for yourselves, I'd imagine in some ways, like Juniper are kind of quite clearly pushing at the cutting edge of technology, and looking to kind of break that. So you're going to be looking for people that embrace that mentality and are part of that growth. That's not to say that everyone should be, but that's the mission statement that you have, all intents and purposes, and that's how the business acts. So I suppose in some ways, in the right organization, it acts as a clarification for the organization in some of the attitudes of the people that you're looking to meet with and hire. As I said, you've kind of made me pull a 180 and now consider that whole sequence very differently to even what I did 5 minutes ago. So yes.
On the AI agent, because it's a hot topic right now, and there's a lot of investment and a lot of companies going into that space. I can tell you they are not all created equal. Some of them are so awkward, like you'll talk like we are, and it'll be like a 20-second pause before the agent goes back. So I also encourage people that if you are going to start exploring that you talk to multiple vendors, connect with your network, see which ones are working really well. Because I've seen some that are terrible, and I've seen some that are like, wow, okay, I did not know it was evolving this quickly. Secondly, we got to realize that there's going to be a lot of there's some crazy videos out there on like TikTok and social media right now of these AI agents and how they malfunction. You can open up a newspaper, article online, and you can see the scary headline. It's always important to realize that you got to go a step further and start having these type of conversations. And I'm sure some people who are going to be thinking or listening to this conversation are just starting to think about AI and might see some of those headlines and be kind of scared by that. But that's why it's important to listen to different resources like the Leadership Collective and the podcast here, connect with leaders within your community, talk to other leaders. If you're interviewing with a company, ask them. Interviewing is a two-way street. How are you thinking about AI? What's going well with AI in your company? What's not going well? And the more you start having these conversations, you realize, like I said, everyone's experimenting right now and just trying to start to figure out what is the full capabilities of AI and how is it going to shape the way we do our work.
Couldn't agree more. That's one of the things that we set as a precedent, to say the least. Kind of open dialogue and conversation is what leads you to understand new things and grow in it. I'm definitely not the arrogant enough to say that I know everything about everything, and you'd have to learn from people that are doing it to understand it. I mean, before we come close on this conversation and kind of tease what's coming up next in follow up conversations, there is I suppose the basis of what everybody will be looking at in AI at the moment, and especially from what you're doing, I'd love to understand what you're doing in some of the, I suppose what you'd see as more of the basic sides of AI nowadays. And from my perspective, as I said, one of the things that we're looking at internally and we're using more and more is almost treating AI as your personal assistant in all intents and purposes. It can impact a lot on automation. It can help you get rid of those boring tasks and help your team function better, you function better, and morale increase. What things in particular were kind of, and I tend to find that these are the first stages of people going into AI. So I'd be interested at what you were first dabbling in within that and what you've focused on to kind of lead that side of it as well. The basic administration, not the recruitment or the hiring or any of that.
Yeah, I think it is first trying out different resources. So for me, I use ChatGPT personally a lot. But Juniper Square, we have Gmail, so we use Gemini, and Gemini, it's locked down and the model's not trained on our data. We don't put any customer data in there, but working with our security team, we can put our company data in there. So I use that quite a bit. And they have some really cool features that they've rolled out lately, like the deep thinking one where it can go really deep and like analyze things for you and pull together a whole research for you. It's pretty cool. So first, it's starting to understand what is out there in terms of resources. So a few, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, looking at those, then researching what are some tools that are out there that are specific to your role or your function, right? Like there's some really cool engineering ones that I'm probably not as in the know of, but I'm trying to stay ahead of, kind of the broader ones and then the TA specific ones, starting to try them out. From there, it's then thinking each day, everything that you're doing, think about, could I use AI to help me with this? And then try it out. So one thing I do on a monthly basis is I look at all of our NPS data. So all of our candidate surveys, their the qualitative feedback on that. And sometimes, it could take 10 minutes. Sometimes I'd spend 30 minutes, quickly looking at what are some trends. Now I just exported a report of it, uploaded it into Gemini, said, organize all of this into a chart for me so I know our average per question, break it down by geo, and then tell me what are the 2 to 3 things we're doing really well and what are the 2 to 3 things we could improve on. And I literally uploaded it into Gemini. Now that's a lot of data for it to do. So it took a few minutes, responded to an email, came back, and it had this beautiful chart for me. So that's an example of if you just pause and you think, do I need to do this right now? Or could AI help me with this? And then you experiment with that, then you're able to start to see how it can impact your day. And then for TA leaders, I have a weekly team meeting, and historically we would always ask an icebreaker question, and we still do that to have fun sometimes. But another thing I've done is I want everyone to experiment with AI over the next week and come to our team meeting and share a learning with us on how you've used it. So it's important to start having that regular conversation with your team and your peers, because then that gets you thinking in a different way too. So that's primarily how I've done it, on top of working with our vendors to understand their product roadmap and the features that they're using today. I wouldn't say we're doing anything super advanced right now, but we're leaning into it. We're educating ourselves. We're building that foundation, and we're using more and more of it month over month.
Interesting. Yeah, that's the best way to look at it, and that's what we're trying to do better and better here. Is exactly that kind of thing. Can this be helped by AI? Can it be alleviated? There's a lot that I've learned that can't, and or I'm not maybe conversing with AI correctly to get it to do what I want it to do. But very good on that side for us to get a lot of the monotonous tasks out of the way, and data extraction is yeah, it's massive what it can do on that.
Yeah, and you'll learn it has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. But again, you can prompt and probe. So my advice for everyone is like really learn how to prompt. There's a lot of online resources that are free. So you can go to ChatGPT. They have an online resource to teach you. Google has a great one. I'm sure on YouTube there's a ton out there. But really understand what are the resources out there, and then really focus on crafting really strong prompts and getting stronger and stronger with that. The better you get with that, the more of a better result you're going to get and the more you're going to train your model. And not everyone has to jump to using their data or doing their work, but like try it personally. I use ChatGPT to do my meal planning for me. I use it to create workout plans, to look up itineraries for trips that I'm going on, gift ideas. So all those little things, even personally, then get you a little bit more comfortable. And then you can start to think in your day-to-day work, what are some things that I can do? And really, if there's anything I can emphasize enough, is get really good at prompting and understand what is a good prompt versus a bad prompt. That will make all the difference early on for you.
It's a lot of trial and error with things like that, to say the least. But definitely, well, again, thank you so much for all of the insights, and the perspective that you've brought is refreshing, to say the least. So thank you for that. As I said, you've kind of made me consider and rethink things on that side within that short conversation. So it's imperative, and it's clear that there's a lot of change coming, and those that are embracing it are going to be the ones that make it through, and those that don't are going to have a tough time, I think is the best way to put it on that side. It's about leading that charge and kind of moving forwards. You are in the hot seat next conversation, so you are switching with myself, and I'm really looking forward to hear how that goes, as I know you're going to be co-hosting. Did you want to give a brief overview or a little teaser of what to expect in the next episode?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And just in general, I just want to say thank you so much for the partnership and the opportunity to be able to be on the podcast. My goal with this is to pay it forward like those who are helping me. And change is really scary, and we're in a time of rapid change, and AI can be scary, but the more we lean in and we have these conversations, we learn, the less scary I think it gets for a lot of people. So my goal is to help with that. As I've gotten to talk about AI, I've had some really cool opportunities to go and meet with different leaders, help understand how are they thinking about AI, but also internally with my own team. And at Juniper Square, very early on, my boss, Victoria Reimers, our SVP of People, was very mindful in that to drive this cultural change at Juniper Square, it needs to come from the top down, and it needs to come from the people team alongside our executive team. And so our people team has actually taken the lead at rolling out a lot of the resources and the trainings within Juniper Square to help ensure that all of our employees are on that side of being with AI versus without AI. And so in our next conversation, we'll be inviting Victoria to come on board and really talk about how the people team has been at the strategic forefront of leading the AI culture at Juniper Square and the change management that we're doing.
Well, I really look forward to hearing that. I mean, even just from this conversation, it sounds like you guys have been doing some fascinating things. So I can't wait to hear more about that. I'm James Crouch. Thank you again for everybody tuning in. And thank you again, Tommy, for taking the time to come and talk to me today.
Honored to be here. Thank you.